Hey listeners, it's Paul Andriola here. Why not join our community at Small Cap Discoveries, where we offer our members direct access to some of the best microcap investment opportunities available. Our members are getting access to premium microcap financings, research reports, and direct access to management. Sign up today at www.smallcapdiscoveries.com.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Small Cap Discoveries conference call. Today on our call, we have the CEO, Peter Shippen from Britannia Life Sciences. Britannia trades on the Canadian Securities Exchange under the symbol BLAB, and it also trades on the OTC under BLISF. The company is currently trading at about 8.5 cents with about 162 million shares outstanding, or about a $14 million market cap. I'd now like to hand it over to Paul Andriola.
Thanks a lot, Trevor. Yeah, Peter, happy to have you here. I think we spoke about 2 months ago, maybe a little bit longer. Britannia is a name that we sort of stumbled on, based on our CDR reviews. So, great to have you on, and great to sort of get a chance to sort of get a real understanding of what the business is all about. So, you got your presentation. I'm just going to hand it over to you.
Great. Thanks to you both for having me, and for those who are able to join. Certainly appreciate the opportunity to tell you a bit about our business and how it came about and what we're working on. So just before I get started, I'll just highlight the I'm gonna make it, so just please keep that in mind. So what are we? So that does everything from people will know about diagnostics when you go to the doctors, but there's also a lot of a significant around testing, inspection, and compliance. And industries in consumer goods, you wouldn't believe the things that need to get tested. Everything from toasters to handbags and cosmetics and food. And after kind of 20 years in the investment business, kind of, compliance and dealing with compliance almost on a daily basis, I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to start looking at compliant businesses as a way of investing and making money? And that's what we ended up doing. We have operations in kind of two key verticals. One is in the consumer goods industry, and that's a UK-based business where we do testing largely around cosmetics, food, nutraceuticals. And off the back of that business, and with the lab expertise that we had, we ended up, expanding into the natural resource sector. My background's in capital markets. I had an investment business that I grew over about 10 years, sold it to a company in Canada called Purpose Investments. And Canadian, you get your fair share of investments in mining stocks. And one thing that always just became to me, or mining companies, was we're doing really well, but our results are in the lab, waiting for our results to come out. So we started looking into, off the back of our technology platform in the UK, could we get into the mining sector with new technology to disrupt that sector? And we have done that. You'll see in the next slide how our company's set up. But generally, the theme is that we're using technology, are very much showing that technology drives better margins and ultimately drives better results for our customers. Here's the collection of that we own. You can look at us as kind of an integrated lab business, or you could look at us almost as a company of various lab businesses. Our initial asset was ASL, so Advanced Development and Safety Laboratories in England. The natural resource sector, as a company that didn't have a ton of capital, we went out and raised money from a number of pretty high profile mining investors, many of whom some big mining companies in Canada, and also some key investors like Crescat Capital and Eric Sprott have come in to help fund the capital side of that business, whereas there's a significant minority stake. When we start looking at our our assets relative to our share price, we do kind of key segments that are profitable and growing. ADSL is a really nice business, has significant growth, about 30% year over year, and it's looking like we're getting off to the year really well and strong footing here. But when we started looking at how do we look at our business, how do we value our business, how do we tell the story to investors? Well, we started looking at this idea of different pieces on a sum of the parts. One of the things I would say about Britannia, and one of the reasons why we don't have a tremendous following, is it does take some time to roll up your sleeves and get into the financials to understand the businesses that we have and the money that they make. So in an effort to kind of simplify this, what we've done is this sum of the parts. So when we look at these three key segments on an individual basis and X out for any debt and our percentage of ownership, you'll see that we come up with this implied share price that is significantly higher than where we are today. And depending on whether you look at the high or the low, anywhere from kind of 20 to 30 cents is where we think fair value is for our assets at the moment. One of the other reasons that we don't necessarily get a ton of attention is that we're a small business, which I know, but our comparables, the companies, the really big lab companies, don't trade in North America. If you look at these businesses, SGS as an example is a $20 billion company. They trade in Switzerland. Intertek trades in the UK. Eurofins trades in Paris, and so on. So we don't really have comparables here to look at and say, okay, here's Britannia's key comparables in this market, and wow, look, they're really inexpensive relative to them. But you can see that a lot of these, for those who kind of think, okay, you're in cosmetics and mining, does that really make sense? Well, a lot of these companies are in those verticals and continue to expand. A natural next step for us would be into environmental and agriculture off the back of our mining testing labs. So there's one thing I want to highlight here is from a competitive comparison, our margins are significantly higher than our competitors. The technology that we've developed and the technology that we use drives much higher margins than our competitors. I'll give you just an example. We have some really neat tech in the cosmetics business that allows us to do testing, and turnaround times are quite good there. We've also invested in photon assay technology. For those who aren't familiar with it, it's really a big shift in the mining industry. So whereas fire assay is something that's been done for kind of 2,000 years, photon assay is a relatively new technology from an Australian company called Chrysos Corporation. We've signed contracts for 12 machines, leases to have 12 machines and build out labs globally. So about, call it a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago, the Barrick Corporation, the largest gold company in the world, came out and said, we are shifting all of our testing to photon assay. And we think a lot of other companies are going to do the same. And we're in a pretty interesting position where we've got 20% of the global supply of these machines. So when we're building our labs, we're building it with technology in mind. And again, technology drives higher margins and ultimately better results for customers. So just to recap what we've done in the last year, we acquired an existing lab business called Paragon Geochemical in Reno, Nevada. It's a real hotbed of the mining industry, and it's being used as kind of our key hub for our mining assay business. We acquired a company, a small manufacturer of cosmetics and regulatory services in the cosmetics industry to complement our holdings in ADSL. Our goal with ADSL, we increased our ownership to 72%, and our goal is to consolidate that to 100% this year. We've been looking at a lot of labs and a lot of different complementary acquisitions, particularly in Europe, to complement our UK business, and we see the opportunity to do acquisitions in that space as well. We've deployed, and we're in the final stages of commissioning our first photon assay unit in Ontario. We are building, we've built this lab, we're building a second lab in BC, where we're using this new technology that turns a multi-day process of fire assay into essentially a scan that takes 2 minutes. So when you think about the bottlenecks in the mining industry around making decisions and how expensive it is to have people and drill rigs sitting idle while you're waiting for weeks at times, results at your mining assay lab, this really unblocks that bottleneck and creates a really great new value proposition for miners. We continue to look around, particularly in Europe, at distressed businesses. There's a lot of interesting things in this lab space where there's some great science, some great scientists that have built really good technology, but they've forgotten to build a business. So we continue to look through some of these companies that have developed great tech, but never really spent a lot of time getting customers. And there's a few businesses like that we're evaluating currently. I would say the big thing for us, a huge opportunity for us, is in Europe and in the UK, cosmetics is a pretty highly regulated industry. It is each product has to have its own safety dossier that goes along with it before it can be sold on the shelves. This year, the United States is putting in a very similar system where all products will have to be registered. They'll have to go through the same safety assessment. So when you think about that in terms of like opportunity, it's one of those funny things where companies really haven't spent a whole lot of time thinking about their regulatory framework and compliance in the US market. And we're starting to see people wake up to the fact that, oh, geez, this is happening right now. This is happening in real time. And we haven't actually done anything to prepare for it yet. So we're starting to see, I don't want to say an explosion, but we're starting to see a lot of incoming questions around this modernization of cosmetic regulations in the US. And we're seeing that as a pretty significant opportunity for us. There is a little bit of debt on the business. It's not significant related to our cash flow and our EBITDA numbers, but I highlight that in addition to the equity, there is some debt on the business. Just really highlighting again, technology. We've been looking a lot at AI and machine learning in terms of driving better results for our customers. We've invested in product management and consumer management systems to be able to get results and technology to get results through to our customers in a more timely way using technology. And then we're looking beyond photon assay at what are the next key innovations in mining technology. How can we be viewed as a technology business as opposed to a testing business? Just one thing that's interesting is we have a, you can punch it into your browser, but there's a website called firstbeauty.com. It's a business that we own. First Beauty is a consumer evaluation and clinical trialing business. We've got about 40,000 users registered on that platform. We've got everything in there from their demographic information, where they live, how much they make, everything, their hair type, skin type, how porous their skin is. So we have this like treasure trove of data that we're looking to use deeper learning, machine learning, AI to try and ultimately benefit from this data that we have. there's I can go into more depth on some of these opportunities, but the one thing that I've harped on a lot about already is just this idea of taking a traditional business and adding technology to it. And because of our growth and our incremental margins, you see that we're kind of consistently in the low 40% margin game, and that's after kind of all of our corporate overhead. So it's a pretty interesting place to be. The lab space, I think, is, again, after 20 years of being in finance and having to deal with the compliance department all the time, for me, this is an opportunity for us to benefit and earn from being the compliance company, the compliance service. These companies don't have a choice of whether they test or not. They have a choice of who they test with. And for us, we're trying to use technology and an integrated group of services to be able to attract and retain customers. And we've got some really interesting and great customers, from kind of the body shop right on down to a couple examples of some really large companies, multinationals. I think one I'll highlight is, because they've come out publicly and talked about it, is Dyson, the vacuum cleaner company that also do hair dryers, are doing a significant amount of development around personal care goods. So you're starting to see some companies like that get into the cosmetic space, because it is quite a lucrative space. And because the new product cycle is constant, new colors, new flavors, new formulations coming quarterly, monthly, for every season. It's a business that's constantly growing and constantly in kind of a renewal phase. So, Paul, I think if it's cool, what I'll do is I'll pause there. I think I've taken up about 15 or 20 minutes to give a highlight of the business, but I'm not happy to answer any questions or go into anything that you think I've kind of glanced over.
No, Peter, thank you so much. I want to remind everybody that's listening, if you've got a question you'd like to ask Peter, please use the chat function and I'll ask the question. Okay, let's just start off on the stock side of things. 162 million shares outstanding. What percentage is owned by insiders? And you mentioned some of the other sort of players that are shareholders or funded the company, but as far as insiders, what's the ownership percentage?
Yeah, so the public company is kind of 40% owned by management. I would say that other shareholders are largely accredited investors, particularly many of whom work on Bay Street in various capital markets type roles. And so when I actually look at the company itself, the shareholder base, we've had quite a bit of turnover in the shares of the company since we went public into an RTO, into this shell. And I would hazard a guess that a large, like a significant majority of shares are held by people who are quite close to the story and quite familiar with what we're working on and what we're trying to do.
And when did you RTO?
November 2021.
Yeah.
We picked the top of the market, but yeah, we've grown the business since then. The trends and things have been very positive. Margins are really important to us. We want to try and protect those at all costs. And yeah, so it's just been a rougher market. I think we were within days of kind of the TSX Venture Index hitting their high when we went public.
Yeah, always hard to predict timing there. Financially, are you guys looking to raise money at any time in the future? Or do you think you've got what you need? You've got some debt. You maybe describe the debt a little bit. Is that some sort of term debt, or is that what can you tell about the balance sheet, I guess?
Yeah, so what I would say is that we've always kind of said to our shareholders that if we found an accretive acquisition and we required equity, that would be why we would need to raise money. We've kind of taken the position that because we have profitable businesses, like we're not in this junior kind of realm where we need to raise money for salaries and rent, those kind of things. Our debt, what I would say, is quite friendly. We've got one UK-based lender on the UK business, and we've got a Canadian-based lender on the US business. Even with kind of rates going up significantly, the blended vendor loan and debt on our US business comes in around 7%, because we've got really preferential terms on the vendor notes, and the lender is actually quite reasonable. The debt in the UK is a bit higher, but it's also, in the context of the overall EBITDA of the business, it's less than 2 times. So, there's an opportunity for us to, use debt to be able to, acquire, consolidate the ownership of ADSL that we don't have, and we could probably, maybe even improve the terms, because we have a longer operating history with this business now, and a lot more people are aware and familiar with our corporate structure. We did find it difficult, honestly, in the early days, because we were a Canadian company with a UK operating asset, and not everyone had seen that every day. So we didn't have this challenge where the UK company saw us as a Canadian company, and Canadian banks saw us as a UK business. So I think we've solved for that now.
And taking a step back and sort of thinking of your different addressable markets, like are you in the different verticals you're in? Are you a major player, a small player? Is a large addressable market? Is this sort of specified? What can you tell us there?
Yeah, I'll just kind of highlight a couple of things. Certainly within consumer goods, in the UK, again, we're not a huge business, but we're actually quite a unique business, in the sense that the breadth of services that we offer in say cosmetics, as an example, we can do everything from, like, take the concept out of your head, formulate a product, do all the testing analytics required to make the product safe, do all the reporting for it, right down to labeling. So what I would say is, we do have this platform that allows a company, an individual, to take a product from concept right through to putting it on the shelf, and we can even help with consumer trials. Because of that, we've been able to attract and retain some pretty significant customers, and where we really kind of win, I think, is in kind of the mid-sized market, where there's not as much done internally, for, say, like a beauty pie, as an example. Revolution Beauty, they generate a lot of new products, but they don't have a huge in-house development team, because they're not that big. But one thing we do think we have a huge opportunity on is the ability to cross-sell our services. So some people come to us for 1 or 2 or 3 services, and we need to try and get that up to 4 or 5 services. And we think that even internally, with our current customer base, we can grow this business significantly without even having to grow so massively on the new customer front. I will highlight too, just that the market in consumer that we're addressing, the compliance spend is growing at twice the rate of the overall market growth. So it's a pretty interesting theme, in the sense that compliance is actually, as a share of the overall spend on products, is growing quite significantly. And then in the natural resources sector, I highlight this. By the end of 2025, there's going to be 60 Chrysos photon assay machines on the planet. We're going to be operating 12 of them. 21 of them are going to be, or thereabouts, are going to be operated by MSA Labs for Barrick. So this is against a backdrop of the total addressable market being about 600 machines. So we think we're in a really strong position with our 12 machines and the total number of machines that'll be out by the end of next year. will only address about 10% of that mining market.
Mhm.
So what we want to try and be able to do is make sure that our machines are fully utilized. In terms of burying the lead, each of these machines,
Mhm.
if fully utilized at reasonable pricing, they generate about $500,000 a month of free cash flow.
Well,
With that, we end up being able to add additional services. So when people come to us for photon assay, we can also offer additional services as well, and try and do like we've done in the consumer goods business, which is bring a customer in with one service and then cross-sell on a number of other opportunities. So it's it really is about us taking bringing this technology in and making it a key differentiator for our business in more traditional lab settings.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Peter, you had a couple graphs up earlier that highlighted some pretty impressive growth over the next several years. What do you need that you don't have now to make sure you hit that kind of growth? Do you need more salespeople? Do you need more capital to buy more machines? What do you need to hit that sort of those targets?
Yeah, I think a more organized and structured sales effort. Really focusing and trying to build out a business development team would be good. I think a lot of what we've been doing, particularly in the mining sector in Canada, but also, we're at a stage now that, word of mouth and friend of a friend is we've got to really institutionalize our sales efforts, and we're taking steps to do so. For us to accelerate beyond our 12 machines, we would potentially look at, needing additional capital to do so. But we really want to get these first kind of 4 or 5 machines rolled out, test, show the market that we are able to fill these machines up, and then probably look to make a commitment into 2026 to get more photon assay machines and potentially introduce other technologies as well.
Mm-hmm. And currently, how many employees do you have?
So we've got about 25 in Reno. We've got about 25 in the UK, and 5 in Canada, and that we expect that number to grow to about 25 by the end of this year.
Gotcha. So the increase in staff that you're looking for, what kind of skill set would they need? Are you talking scientists? Are you talking salespeople, or just off the street type of employees?
Yeah, I would say for the operation of the photon assay machines, what we look for is kind of a semi-skilled labor. It's not completely simple work. Like there's some nuance to getting the samples in. But what's interesting is for the number of samples that one of these machines can run over the course of the month, we think we can operate the machine 24/7 with about 6 to 8 people when taking into account weekends and holidays. The similar lab in fire assay would take probably 50 to 60 people to run the same number of samples. So we're able to do more samples with less people. There's some tremendous ESG benefits on photon assay. It's a lot less carbon footprint. There's no acids, and it's a safer environment for people. Fire assay is still going to be a really important part of the industry for the foreseeable future. We do fire assay and geochemical work in Reno. We have a fully equipped lab there. But again, we're taking this traditional lab that is a really good business, and we're adding technology to it, and that should benefit the company overall. Yeah.
And what does one of these machines cost?
So we pay a deposit, and then we pay, like the Christos business model is fairly well known, but it's essentially you pay per use.
Okay.
So it's actually quite asset light.
Yeah.
Which is amazing from our perspective, but yeah, it's where I think we've benefited is we move quickly to lock up these machines ahead of a lot of the other major lab groups who because they have a much more significant legacy business in fire assay, that they had to be really careful about how quickly and how significantly they moved onto new technology.
Peter, what running the business, what challenges are you facing? Like what sort of keeps you up at night?
Yeah, great question. I think that one of the key risks is when you're bringing in new technology into spaces that are much more used to traditional methods. It does take some time to get people over that technology hump. I think as it relates to photon, it has been proven out now, and with Barrick coming on board and these kind of things, there's a much broader kind of acceptance than say 2 years ago when we first embarked upon this idea. But really, what it comes down to is, like, for us, quality of service and turnaround time. And if we can get both of those right, whether it's with technology or with manpower, we're going to win, and we're going to win customers that way. I think that really is, finding new customers and getting them comfortable with new technology is probably one of the challenges. But I think we're facing that and addressing that pretty well. Yeah.
Now, as you continue to grow and ideally continue to generate more cash, what do you want to do with that cash? Your free cash flow, how are you going to allocate that?
Yeah, like I'd like to think that we're always going to have an opportunity to deploy that capital into accretive opportunities within the business. But we're significant shareholders ourselves in terms of money in the business, actually writing checks in the business. I've written the largest checks going into this company as well. So it's not, it's not free stock that got us here. Like we put money in. So the idea that if we don't have a use for cash in the future, a dividend, stock buyback, any way to kind of return capital to shareholders if we don't have a good use for it.
Peter,
in the short term, though, that we're going to continue to see like opportunities, because we do want to kind of scale up and continue to grow the business.
I appreciate that. So one of the questions that came in, it's somebody just wants some clarity. It says, just wanting to make sure I understand what you said. You're doing the assays of the drill core samples of the mining explorers, correct?
Yeah. Also, like there's a lot around people building mines. So things like grade control for mine building. That's also a big part of the business.
Yeah. And then, well, I guess the question is, what percentage of your overall revenue comes from that part of the business?
So if you look at the companies themselves, it's about 50-50. But please, like, remember that we own less of the mining business than we do of the UK Labs business. So it ends up being kind of 2/3, 1/3.
Gotcha. And continue to this question. It says, did you say you have a newer, faster technology to do this? And this is the technology that Barrick is asking for.
Yeah, so Barrick have done a deal with one of our competitors. So essentially what it's done is we've got the second most number of machines on lease globally. Barrick has done a deal with MSA Labs, which essentially has taken the bulk of the kind of commercial units that are available to deploy and made them focused on Barrick. So for us, we look at it and say, okay, Barrick is a great customer, and it's not going to be our customer, but there's also some really big mining companies out there that are going to want to move towards this technology as well. The other thing we think is, for any company, like we happen to be in Reno, for any company that wants to one day potentially sell to Barrick, they're going to want to transition to this technology as well to be able to have all of their assays on the same system in the same way that Barrick does theirs. So we think it's been a huge vote of confidence for the industry. Like the uptake on it was already amazing, and now it's just another kind of seal of approval from the world's biggest miner, gold miner.
And do you have customers sort of waiting for this, or do you expect to just be able to sell to your existing customers for the fire assays or traditional assays?
A bit of both.
Okay.
The neat thing about this assay technique is it can literally take minutes. There's also sample prep and these things that go into it, but instead of it being a multi-step and quite a complex process using heat and acids and this and that, it's just a scan. It's non-destructive, which means you can test the same samples. You can take a sample and go do a metallurgical test on it. So there's some real benefits there. We've got, for starting next week, we've got a couple of really big customers that are going to start using our Ontario lab. So we're just kind of commissioning that machine as we speak and training people on it. And so that's kind of happening real time.
So can we say weeks? Are we talking weeks in terms of when you're actively sort of providing the service, or is it a little bit longer than that? What do you feel comfortable
Yeah, like I mean, if there's any mining folks on the call here, reach out to us. We're happy to help. We're offering kind of introductory offers to get samples for the lab. We're even offering for some customers who want it like same day turnaround times on mining samples. So yeah, any of your subscribers who are in the mining industry or invested in the mining company, if they've heard what I heard for years saying, oh, the lab's taking a long time, please get in touch with us. We're ready to go. We're taking samples like right now. So things are happening.
Fantastic. So, as we wrap up here, what do you think is the most important thing, or what are the metrics, maybe even catalysts that investors should be paying attention to the most to see that you're sort of continuing on in the right direction?
Yeah, I think two things for us is we want to grow the top line and maintain our margins. That is our goal. We want to bring in new customers. We want to dazzle the customers we have for them to want to do more business with us. And because of the cost controls and how we run our business, if we can grow that top line, then the bottom line should follow. So yeah, through COVID and we feel like we're on a pretty good growth trajectory now, coming out of last year.
And then lastly, Peter, is there any key message, or is there anything we missed that you want to make sure everybody understands or knows before we wrap up?
Yeah, I guess what I would say is I get that this is not a simple, straight up story in terms of like we've got two different operating divisions. We've got some outside shareholders in these businesses, but what I would say is that this overall strategy of bringing technology into the lab space, I think, is one that is really interesting. It's one that should continue to drive good results for us over time. And yeah, I think one of the reasons why we haven't gotten more attention is because it really does. And Paul, you and Trevor actually dug into our financials, started reading the notes and reading the MD&A, and you guys did all that work and came to the conclusion that this is an interesting business, or at least worthy to share with your subscribers. So what I would say is, yeah, maybe it's not the simplest story, but it's a really unique one. And if we had, other comparables in the market, I think, people would be more aware of these types of businesses, but they tend to be more European based. So.
Okay, perfect. Well, listen, I appreciate it, Peter. We've been speaking with Peter Shippen, CEO of Britannia Life Sciences. Symbol is BLAB on the CSE. If you've got any other questions for Peter, you can always reach out to him directly. Peter, maybe what's the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, my email addresses and phone numbers on our press releases, but peter@britannia.life finds me. And yeah, again, happy to help if there's a cosmetics lead or a food or a mining company out there that you think could be beneficial of our approach. We'd be happy to help. So thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Peter. And we'll check in the near future. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.